So now I'm going to be introducing our third speaker, who is Paul. And Paul is the managing partner of Volition. He is a 20-year veteran of entrepreneurship and has immense experience in business development, fundraising, scaling and marketing strategy, and is a master pitch and presentation coach. And so with that, Paul, the mic is yours. Looking forward to hearing about your journey.
There we go. I think that worked. Okay, so good day, everybody. So as was mentioned, I am a managing partner, and I guess I'll look at the camera actually. I'll move it. That's better. So I am a managing partner and co-founder of Volition. Many people kind of know me for that. And it's this slide is actually not meant for me to do an advertisement for my businesses. There's actually a reason for this. So I am a 20-year entrepreneur with about 15 years of pitching and fundraising experience. The main thing is that I'm a 20-year entrepreneur. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of a company called Straws and Stuff, and also the COO and co-founder of a company called Bucky Technologies, and an instructor at 3 schools, which you can actually see right now. I'm in, well, you might be able to see right now that I'm in class, because I'm starting class actually in about 10 minutes. So that's pretty cool. However, I'm also the father of 3 boys. I have Nathan here on the left. That's my youngest at 8. I have Brendan, who's in the middle there at 12 years old as of last month, and Noah on the far right side, who's 10 years old. And like me, they love ice cream. So that's us in White Rock earlier this year. Now, all that to say that but if it's not clear, like all of us, I'm sure, I'm very busy, a lot going on. But I want to talk a little bit about, I know we're talking today about parent-preneurship and a little bit on the tips, but I wanted to just kind of give a view on a little bit of before parent-preneurship, as it were, for me. And the reason that's relevant is because the tips I want to share are things that I'm hoping that I can impart as tips for future entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about getting into it or are just starting in their journey. And what I want to say is that before I became a parent, unfortunately, I started down the path of, like many, that didn't really take care of themselves. I was notoriously famous, still am technically, notoriously famous for staying up really late. And I just lost my screen, so I'm going to switch it here. Sorry. Okay, so I was notorious for staying up really late and working really long hours and working on way too much at any given time. And so that ultimately resulted in 2015, I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea, which most people don't really know. I don't go around talking about it. And this isn't meant to be a sob story or anything like that. But I found out because I almost crashed my car going up the cut in North Van. Because I fell asleep at the wheel, and I was too stubborn to do anything about it beforehand and didn't realize that I had an issue. So once I went in and I discovered this, I was able to start making some changes, but I didn't really make a lot of changes. It really started coming into fruition. I'm just going to plug in my home headphones as I'm talking here, as my students, of course, are starting to come in. But once I started doing that, I started having to make some changes. And now I'm hoping that you guys can still hear me. Maybe somebody can give me a sign that they can still hear me. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now this feels like a long time ago, especially with COVID coming into play. And so since then, I sacrificed or even in the olden days, I would constantly sacrifice my mental health, my physical health, and that all took a toll up to a point that I unfortunately almost died from it. And so after that scare, I really looked to find a way to make some changes. So in 2015, I sold the business I was in at the time. I looked for ways to decrease the amount of work I was doing, and just make some significant changes in my life. And I also made some promises because at that time, now I was a parent. And it really came to light that if I wanted to be around for a long time with my kids, I needed to make some changes. And so where I'm going with this is that I'm going to give you some tips at the very end. Obviously, what I'm going to say is, as cool as the work is that I do, I love the work I do between Volition, Straws and Stuff, Bucky, and getting to work with entrepreneurs all the time, and getting to work in the community and now the global startup community. That being said, I would encourage everybody to make sure that they do find that time, and make sure that they find time for themselves and to keep that wellness in mind. So I have talked about this before with other people, and they often say to me, a question I get quite often is, well, Paul, how do you manage it all? How do you do it all? How do you make it all work with all these different things that you're doing? And so a lot of people talk about work-life balance, but for me, I've never really found that. And I am a self-admitted workaholic. I got it from my mom and my dad. It's part of who I am. I grew up in a poor family, so I had to work at a very young age in order for me to. The reasoning was actually that I didn't want my mom to have to worry about me, and I wanted to pay my own way. So I started working at a very young age, and that was also though where some bad habits started getting developed. So instead of work-life balance, what I've really found over the years is better for me is work-life integration. And I actually really like what Manoj said, in part of, when you are passionate about what you do, it almost comes like a hobby. You actually don't want to sleep because you want to get things done. You want to do stuff. And even now, like, I find myself staying up late because I'm working on Bucky, which is in the NFT cryptocurrency space, and we're building a game around space exploration. And it's so cool. I don't want to stop working on it. Straws and Stuff, we're replacing products that restaurants and cafes are using with fully biodegradable from nature back to nature products, which again really hits my passion because that's our future we're talking about. It's also my kids' future. And so these things are really resonating with me, which really kind of has brought me back to that whole, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, which I've really become an avid believer of. And so I've really looked for ways to do work-life integration and find ways of making that work for me. And so one of the things that I've personally unlocked in my world is finding the right people. I think is a real key to that success of helping me do the things I want to do. So with the right people, we have a joke at my office that my job is to find ways of sleeping under my desk. Now, anybody who really knows me knows that that's not what I'm actually doing. But the reason it's a running joke is because my job is really to find the right team members and support them so that they can succeed. And the more that they succeed, the more we ultimately succeed as well. And so it's been something I've been really concentrating, honestly, actually, just over the last year and a bit, especially since the advent of Straws and Stuff and Bucky and Volition continuing to grow and taking on more teaching, although I just recently cut back some of my teaching as a result, but really doing more of the things that I love and simplifying. It may not seem like I'm simplifying, but I really have tried to simplify the things I'm doing as much as I can. And then the harder, more complex stuff is from people who are better at it than I am. And so that's probably not really mind-blowing, but it's definitely something I can say has really worked for me, and really kind of reminds me of something that I've taught to my class and something that I say all the time. It was one of the first lessons my uncle taught me in business, although maybe it was dating advice, I'm not sure. But he always said, when in doubt, KISS, which is keep it stupid simple. And I know we've probably all heard that concept before, but now that I'm 40 and working my tail off and heading towards retirement, I know it's weird for me to talk about that, but I'm really trying to find ways of simplifying as much as I can. And so that helps me to do my work-life integration and find ways, making sure that I'm scheduling in time for the family, making sure that I'm communicating with my family and that I'm up on what needs to be done and where I need to be involved and making sure I'm getting involved, making sure that the weekend is the space where I'm not working as little as possible, where that's their time. And taking that time with them, which actually it's been alluded to, I think, from Manoj, even in the sense of COVID, of like making sure that we have that time, and it's almost been thrust upon us because I'm home with the kids and the cats at some points, especially last year. And so really getting more of that time with them and making sure that I'm spending more time. So in the previous slide, it's sort of like, this is what people really kind of think it looks like, or what it's supposed to look like. But what I've really found is that it's really kind of like a high wire act. It is a balancing act. You have to find a way to kind of make it work. And ultimately, what I have to say is, for me, people ask me how I do it. For me, I really try to find ways of compartmentalizing. So making sure that I separate these things and put them in compartments. And so I can switch easily from one thing to the next. But I'm not saying that it's necessarily the best way, and I don't necessarily recommend it. What I'm saying is it works for me. And so I'm suggesting to all of you is to find a way that works for you. What is your balance? What does that look like? Ultimately, keeping it simple and making sure you make that time for yourself, for your own wellness and health. Recently, I took on a wellness journey with my wife, and I've now lost 33 pounds in the last 3 months, and it's amazing. I'm actually taking that time for myself, and it's about time. And so I don't want you to wait until you're 40 like me. Do it sooner than later. And I'm just going to tail off with, speaking of parents, I just wanted to build some awareness, as my son Noah has a condition called PANDAS, and this has been one of the hardest parts, is seeing him go through these challenges, which is a relatively new thing that's been discovered, and it's brought on through initially strep throat and then autoimmune challenges. And so it's relatively new. There's only one doctor in Vancouver that really practices it, and it's been really challenging. I have to give a lot of credit to my wife because she has been amazing. So a bit of awareness there, but find that balance, make it work for you, and that's my story.
Perfect. Oop, there we go. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your journey. I really liked, oh, I don't think you can hear me.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Can you hear?
Okay, no worries. Okay. Hey, all. Could I? Go ahead. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay, I'll make this quick. So I really loved what you had said about work-life integration. I think that was really great. The compartmentalization, which works for you, is, I think, once again, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. People are going to have to figure out what works for them. So I really liked that point that you had brought up. One question that I had was, what's one thing that parenting has taught you that you think manifests in entrepreneurship? Really, I think patience, for me, not having kids, patience is one thing that I think that parent-preneurs probably do really well with. But yeah, anything else there?
You kind of took it. I think patience is definitely one of them. And I have to give credit to Manoj because he said it really well too, which was, one of the things that's been happening for me recently is working from home and having, at least my oldest son is the one who seems to have a sparked interest in kind of what I'm doing. And it's interesting because I'm getting to hear and see it from his eyes. So he'll kind of like, any of us who are parents will know that our kids are listening more than we realize they are. And so it's interesting because even though I think he's like not listening at all, he's not paying attention, playing video games or watching YouTube or whatever, and then he'll be like, "Oh, I heard you talk about that thing that's really interesting. And what if you were to like to do that or do this? And I'd be like, oh, I never even thought of that. And so keeping an open mind, patience is definitely a virtue, especially when you have a son with mental challenges, as I do. And really, reminding yourself of the key things like perseverance, and reminding them that they need to persevere. I mean, Manoj also alluded to that. So yeah, a lot of those things. Patience for sure. Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, great. That was really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Good luck with your class. Thank you for being here.